That night, Daniel seemed more eager than ever to go to bed. He waited patiently for his leg splints to be taken off, his back brace to be removed, and for a drink to be handed to him. That was one of his best motor skills. He could hold the cup all by himself. But in the bath he was agitated, and over dinner he was awkward, turning his face away from his favourite bacon and beans, until in the end, in exasperation, his mum gave in, and with a peal of delight, Daniel was put to bed. Although he was excited, he was soon asleep, and even sooner standing in daylight again. He was back. Though he was not too sure where back was. There was at least a familiar figure waiting for him. It was small, and it was blue, and it was furry, and it greeted Daniel with a simple but a big grin on its face. "Hello, you," it said. "Hello," said Daniel. Daniel was still looking around, simply enjoying the sensation of being upright when he answered Gorth. Gorth looked like a blue version of one of those tiny bears you won at the fair. One, that is, if your arms worked enough to throw something, and if that bear was wearing a tattered, torn red jacket. Daniel tried the movement and found that here his arms worked fine. Shame that he was transparent, but then you couldn't have everything. "Where are we?" he asked Gorth as he looked around. "Dunno." There was a gentle rose glow to the evening light. The Bosphorus was flowing to the south past a shimmering white marble palace that seemed to float above the desert that surrounded it, so perfect were its proportions. It was a sight to behold, all right, a sight to bewitch the eye. Every view, from the sensuous curve of the dome to the richly jewelled turbans of the guardians, captivating all of the senses of both the young man and the young alien. There was the tang of the salt air that came from the Straits of Marmara, but there was more. There was jasmine on the air, a rich, heady odour of musk, of the ladies of the court, all of them gorgeously attired in diamonds and rubies of the most exquisite cut, filed past. From behind them came the neighing of war horses and the trumpeting of the elephants of the Sultan's personal guard as they prepared for their master's arrival. "Not sure," said Gorth. "Do you think it's Allenton?" "I don't think so." Daniel could see the small galleys being rowed across the fast-flowing body of water in front of them. His dad had loved stories about places like this, was always reading to them about the days of long ago, of knights and maidens and battles. But wherever it was not Allenton. It was certainly not on his bus route. "Shame." Gorth peered down his sleeve again, looking for his communicating device. "Computer?" "Yes, your blue gingeriness." "Where are we?" Gorth could see that something spectacular was about to happen. One glance at the army around him, the amazing animals and the gorgeously dressed nobles told him that. Well, at this point in history of this world, there is great tension between the East and the West. The great Christian city of Constantinople, the heir to the Empire of Rome, has just fallen to the Muslims. It is one of the turning points of world history. An empire which has lasted for 1,000 years has just fallen. "What, and we just missed it?" Gorth looked around. "Yeah, it all looked very glamorous, but where was the drama? The only thing interesting that happened here in years, and we missed it by what? By about a week." There was a shimmering of light around them. "What's going on? Computer, what's going on?" "It's the eye of the storm, I believe." "Well, what's it doing?" "You know you said you wanted to see the fall of Constantinople?" "Well, yeah." "Have a look over there." "Oh, blimey." The Ottoman Sultan's troops are just getting ready to assault the Theodosian walls just to the south of the Golden Horn. Gorth nodded knowledgeably. Seeing this, Daniel did the same. "You don't know what the Golden Horn is, do you?" The computer knew when Gorth was bluffing, because Gorth was always bluffing. No, I don't." The Byzantines are fighting under their emperor's golden flags. The Turks, they were there fighting under the Sultan's red flags. "It's a cake," said Gorth excitedly. "That's a cream horn," said Custard. "No, look, the Sultan is over there. You can see all the Janissaries. They're stationed around the entranceway to the Golden Horn. Stick with me." The Golden Horn is the major inlet of the Bosphorus. It's a horn-shaped estuary. It's over there, look. The Sea of Marmara is beyond it with the Princess Island on the horizon. "So you're sure it's not a cake?" "Definitely." In 1204, the Christian Crusaders during the Fourth Crusade attacked what was then a Christian city and broke the chain that guarded the inlet. They destroyed the Pyrgos tower that anchored it. What language was that? That was Greek. You said it was Roman. They called themselves Roman until they were attacked by the Venetians and the Norman French. Soon they'll be Turkish. Well, I'm glad you cleared that up. Daniel watched as the battle unfolded all around. This medieval city was enormous, and the armies on both sides were huge. "Computer." "Oh, call me Custard, Daniel." "Okay," said Daniel. "I don't think that's a name in Derby." "Well, it's not a normal name for a ship's computer, but Mr. Cunning does like his cookery programs, and who am I to argue? You know, as he says, I just steer the thing. And not very well, I might add." Gorth remembered his manners. "Sorry, young Daniel, you had a question." "I did. This is all very interesting, but what are we doing here?" "That is a very good question. Initially, you were brought back to a place called Smyrna. The link is that was also in Turkey, though 500 years further on in time." "Oh, I think I know what's going on," Gorth said grandly. "You do?" Custard appeared both dubious and a little shocked. "Yes, I do. The link is Turkey." "Well, I just said that." "So all you have to do as a computer is look for something that links Turkey of now with Turkey of then. Do you follow?" Gorth looked very pleased with himself. Well, like what?" asked Daniel, peering under a bush. "Like clues." "Follow me." Gorth sort of float walked towards the front of the great white church. From the raised platform they watched as the Turkish troops breached the walls. The fires were now raging, and the Christian population was fleeing towards the centre of the city. They were bringing with them their icons and their relics as they waited for boats to sail down the Bosphorus. "Where are they going, Custard?" "The city walls have been breached. Some will stay. The Sultan will put a quarter in the south of the city at their disposal, but many will leave. There will be a rebirth of knowledge in the West because of this. Scholars will flee this fallen city and go to Paris and to London." "Is that what we're looking for then? Something they take with them?" "I don't know, young Daniel. I prefer it when you call me Daniel." Daniel nodded towards Gorth's sleeve. "It's a lot better than your blubberiness." "Oh, I saved that for him, you know. It annoys him a lot." "I heard that. I am so rearranging your chips when I get my body back." Gorth floated lazily past his arms behind his head and through a band of murderous-looking soldiers of the Sultan. My dad read me a story about this place. Daniel was floating just above the entranceway to the great church, avoiding the men with their wicked-looking curved scimitars. They had drifted to the edge of the magnificent building. The doors now had been burst asunder, torn from their hinges, and there were bodies scattered around the entranceway. It is the Hagia Sophia. It was the greatest church in the world when it was built, in the heart of the greatest empire. The New Rome it was called, the church that was the wonder of the world. Yeah, bit of a dump. Gorth had wandered up the main steps and was lifting his feet to avoid floating through the blood and the bits of dead horses. "Well, it is now." Custard was in full agreement. "But the Sultan will restore it as a mosque, and it will be beautiful again. But I do not think that is what we were brought here to see." "Well, why not?" "Because it has no connection to 1922 and that part of Smyrna that we saw before." "Oh, all right." "That man over there," said Custard, "is the most powerful man in the world right now. He's the king of all of Turkey, the Sultan of a huge empire, and he has just captured this city, and he will turn it into the centre of a great new empire. The Eye of the Storm must want you to see something to do with him. I suggest we follow him. No, said Gorth, I've had a better idea. Let's follow him. They floated past all of the armies as they assembled and headed towards the passages of what would soon be the Topkapi Palace, past angry, scowling guards. Why are they all so angry? Asked Daniel, floating past a particularly peeved soldier armed with an enormous curved sword. I thought they'd just won the war. They have. Custard coughed delicately. They are angry for another reason. The Sultan has just threatened to end their careers in his employment. Oh, why? They are his most loyal soldiers. They would lay down their lives to protect him. They swore to him on their entire lives, but he's threatening to banish them to the barbarian outer reaches of the Empire forever. That put them in a bad mood? Well, he means Germany. Yeah, that'll do it. Gorth cast a disparaging eye over the soldiers. So what's he saying now, Custard? There was a pause as the computer listened in and translated. This may take a moment. My medieval Turkish is not great. Most of my processing cycles are taken up right now, devising new recipes for fish fingers and porridge. Ooh, any luck with that? Yes, indeed. This is fascinating. The Sultan says they have lost something that... No, the recipes. I was thinking it was the banana that we were missing. You know, or maybe like a halibut and lemon cupcake of some sort, you know? And then maybe if we added crisps, that would include all the major food groups? Crisps are not a food group, said Custard. And neither, surprisingly, are cakes. Wow, shows how little you've learned. That cookery program I stole for you was hardly worth the effort. Gorth tried to lean against one of the pillars in the portico of the palace and fell right through it. You stole it? Custard sounded outraged. That makes up a major part of my primary protocol. You just invalidated my core systems and my guarantee. Relax, big fella. It won't invalidate anything. I stole your core processor and your memory as well. Well, I never did. Custard was rightly outraged. I feel compromised, he said. I feel dirty. You should. You're as dodgy as a ham sandwich at a vegan picnic. You should be on the galaxy's most wanted. Gorth pulled his sleeve open further, which, by the way, is never going to happen unless you start listening to me a bit more. You have to up your game. Fusion cuisine, that's where it's at, you know. I was thinking Polynesian-style Pop-Tarts. If you insist, your sugary frostingness. There was an air of resignation in the computer's voice. Here we go again, it seemed to say. We're breaching the second law of thermodynamics and all of Einstein's special theory of relativity regarding time travel and the speed of light, and you want to talk about Pop-Tarts. Gorth? Daniel was beginning to think that he was the only adult here. What? Custard was translating the Sultan's speech before you told him off. Custard, did you manage to catch it? Yes. Well, can you tell us what he said? I have feelings, you know. This computer had definitely had enough. There would be no more broccoli and treacle tarts made on this ship. Yeah, right you do. I do. Custard, please. What did the Sultan say? I'm not telling you. Not well. He is being so rude. The Sultan said that? No, Gorth, he didn't. Daniel felt his temper rise. This should not be so difficult. He was only in Asia, 500 years in the past, transparent, with a blue alien who was also transparent, and his talking cooking computer who were now having a row. He should be able to figure this out, surely. An hour later, they were still sat outside the steps of the Hagia Sophia Church, still having the same argument. Now, if you were me, young Daniel, Gorth was saying as he put his hands behind his back and floated serenely, and you had finally made contact with the one human you'd travelled 50 light years to meet, would you consider it was time to finally get your body back out of storage? Gorth shrugged. I mean, I can't go on floating around forever now, can I? This may be fun and all, but we're not getting much done. So, where did you leave your body? Gorth shrugged again. Oh, Siberia. Apparently it's quite a big place. You mean you don't know where your body is? Well, not in so many words, no. When I landed on your planet, I wanted to touch down near your house in Derby. Gorth opened up his sleeve again and was pointing down it. Somebody landed me 4,000 miles and 90 years off course. I heard that, said Custard. That would have been great, Daniel decided to ignore them. My mum makes a great stir-fry, and there's always loads of it. You could have come in for some tea. She'd like you. You are funny." Daniel thought the last statement through again. "So, where did you land?" "As I said, Siberia." "Was it a good landing?" In most ways." The scene changed now. They were in some kind of garden, a beautiful magical place, and coming into it were large amounts of guards, each carrying boxes. Inside the box were collections of diamonds and rubies and emeralds that were simply dazzling. "Can you see those?" Gorth was edging ever closer. "Look at those diamonds." Daniel knew nothing about jewels, except that these ones were huge. "Is that what we're looking for, in that giant jewel box?" As they both watched, the ladies filed past under the eye of the chamberlain. They were allowed to each pick one jewel. "Where is that box from?" "It comes from the Emperor's palace. It's the last of the riches of Byzantium. All the rest, I'm afraid, has gone. All the donations to the church, they're all being given to the Sultan's wives now." "Gorth, can you see that? That huge sword?" Gorth was watching wide-eyed as the Sultan's executioner was paraded past the women, presumably for the moral effect. He was swinging an enormous scimitar, easily the largest sword any of them had ever seen. "Oh no, blimey, not that." Daniel caught sight of the sword as well. It was bigger than he was. No. Behind the sword. Gorth looked to where Daniel was pointing into the near distance. There was an icon there, a painting from Byzantium of a holy man on a donkey. But it was what the holy man was carrying. It was a golden globe of some sort. "Is that what it looks like?" asked Daniel. "The Eye of the Storm?" "Well, that isn't the Eye of the Storm, but I think that might be what it's held in." "Oh, okay, so how is that helpful?" "It shows us what we have to find." Gorth floated through the harem and alighted near to the icon painting. On it, in peeling and flaking paint, was definitely a man riding a donkey. "Custard, is that Pat?" "Affirmative. That is a painting of the quadruped known as Pat." "Wow. Who's Pat?" asked Daniel. "Pat is the donkey who has that saint on his back. He's going to help us." "Well, how's he going to do that?" "There are many gaps in the space-time continuum, Daniel, and you can utilize as many of them as you want. However, you need an item to help guide you, or the Eye of the Storm could send you just about anywhere." "Oh, I see, so one of these diamonds." No. You see that gold box at the bottom of the treasure chest?" "Oh yeah, I see it." Custard was silent for a moment as his processors whirred. "The inscription on the box is in Latin. It is from the West, captured and brought here. Will that help us?" "It'll help us track down that donkey. That relic may well be from the time of the saint that is on his back. Find the saint and we find the donkey. Then what? Find the donkey and we can find the Eye of the Storm. It's a chain. But it all starts with that gold box that contains a relic captured from Christian crusaders and brought here." "What is it?" Daniel's voice was all but a whisper now. What could be inside that golden box? "It's a hair plucked from the donkey's bottom." What do we do then? What are we going to do now?" "We're going to do what I'm good at." Gorth pushed out his chest proudly, making the little red jacket sag a bit at the back. "I am going to go and steal that bum hair." This was all tremendous fun, but Daniel was not so sure they should be sneaking into the palace of an emperor, not straight after a great battle, and not to steal his artifacts. It all felt very naughty, and those guards looked very displeased. He decided to act. They would do what they had to do, but there would be a limit. "Gorth," he said, "we have to be very careful here." "Why?" Gorth stopped in his float tracks and turned around looking puzzled. "Stealing is wrong." Daniel said it simply, but firmly. "Yeah, well, I know that, but..." "No buts. My mum and dad both say it's wrong. We're not doing it. That icon is not ours." "Well, you see, Daniel, that is an interesting moral stance, but there are bigger issues at stake." "Like?" "Well, we're not the only ones looking for the Eye of the Storm." Gorth looked around and shivered slightly. "I have heard a rumour that She will be coming after it. She? Shirley. Shirley Seabass Settee. Gorth dropped his voice to a whisper, turning to look behind himself again, in front of himself, then behind himself one more time. All that turning blue was starting to make Daniel feel a little bit dizzy. She doesn't sound very scary, with a name like Shirley. Oh, so you're an expert on frightening now, are you? Well, let me tell you about Shirley. She moves across the universe like a formless black cloud of malevolence and knitting. It took the combined military might of 6 planets to get her to put a crochet down. She leaves behind a trail of smoke and ash. Oh, like a volcano. No, like a heavy smoker. She once poisoned the entire WI Galactic Council with a meal of moose and trotters, then made off with all their trans-dimensional hyperspace bus passers. Gorth nodded. You just had to admire her work. She had recently been taking some time off dead for tax reasons. Well, that was the rumour anyway. He had met her once at a whelk gargling convention on Salmonella 9. He'd been younger, foolish even, and he'd challenged her to a competition to see who could steal the most toilet rolls from the convention sponsors. They'd put them on ice ready for the contestants. She had won, of course. She changed her form into that of a toilet mechanic, second class, stolen every single toilet roll and for good measure replaced them with ones of her own design, made of sandpaper dipped in domestos. He had accepted defeat graciously, and, as a parting gesture, she had shot 2 of the judges and suffocated a third by stuffing mint humbugs up his nose. If there was ever a pensioner with an attitude, that pensioner was Shirley, and that attitude was bad, and now she was headed their way. There was the now familiar tugging sensation, and the blurry window opened up in front of them. See you tomorrow night? Asked Daniel hopefully. Oh, I'm sure. Now don't steal anything. Who, me? Gorth held his hands up in mock horror. The very thought of it. As the world around Daniel shimmered and then disappeared, the last thing he saw was Gorth floating back towards the golden box and the icon.